Are you someone who is dreaming of a master's degree abroad and need to ace the GRE? You have landed in the perfect spot. Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting episode of Study Abroad Roadmap. I am Anirudh Murarka, an ISB alumnus and your chief mentor at IMS International. Today, I'll be your guide as we dive deep into the ins and outs of the GRE, equipping you with everything you need to know to succeed. So on that note, let's get started. So what are we going to discuss in this video? Primarily, three things. First, we would be talking about the scope and validity of your GRE examination. Second, we would be talking about how is GRE as a test. And third, we would be talking about strategies as to how you can get a score of 320 plus in your examination. You'll be happy to know that your GRE examination, the score that you get over there is going to be valid for a total of 5 years. So you might be somebody who wants to do their MS right now. And later on, a couple of years later, you want to do your PhD. So using your same GRE score, you can apply to those PhD programs as well. On the exam day, once you are done with the examination, you get to choose a total of 4 universities or departments to which you can send your official scores. That's absolutely free of cost, but we'll be talking about that in a minute. Third thing, there are multiple programs that accepts your GRE score. Which are those programs? Let's have a look. So, you might be somebody who wants to do their MS, Masters in Science. It could be in the mechanical stream. It could be in the electrical stream. So, GRE is the examination that you opt for. You might be somebody who wants to pursue their MBA. So, you'll be surprised to know that very recently, a lot of colleges have started accepting GRE as their qualifying examination. You might be somebody who is a very recent graduate and wants to do a master's in management. GRE is the examination you can definitely opt for, right? Now, some of you might have watched Suits and might be inspired by Harvey Specter and Mike Ross and might want to do your law from a Harvard University, right? GRE is the examination that you can also appear for. And if you want your PhD in law, the Juris Doc, right? GRE is the examination that you can opt for. You might be somebody who wants to pursue their PhD in some other domains, maybe in management, maybe in sciences, right? GRE is the examination that you can opt for. Lastly, if you are looking for some fellowships as well, you can take your GRE and apply for those fellowships. So let's talk about GRE as an examination. This is conducted by a body, ETS, that is the Educational Testing Services. If you want to take this examination, you will have to pay something. So this examination would be costing you $220 and a GST over it as well would be levied. This is specifically for the Indian audience. Now, how many times can I appear for the GRE? GRE in a period of 365 days can be taken a maximum of 5 times. So therefore, you have to choose your dates very carefully. And if, let's say, you want to take another attempt, you cannot take another attempt before 21 days gets over after your very first attempt. So keep that in mind. There would be some deadlines that the colleges would be having. So make sure that you choose your attempts wisely. Now, one very important thing, and now we are going to be talking about GRE paper pattern. If you look at the GRE as a test, there are 2 sections you would be tested on mainly. One of them is the quant and the next one is verbal. You are also supposed to write an essay. That is what AWA is. So, there are 2 ways in which the paper can be presented in front of you. Your first section is always going to be AWA no matter what you do. Your next section is either going to be quant or verbal reasoning, and then there's going to be an alternating pattern that happens. We will be talking about both these sections in the next slide. One important thing, you do not get breaks in between. I mean, yes, once the section changes from the quant to the verbal, there will be a gap of 1 minute, but you are not allowed to leave your place. You can stretch at the chair that you are sitting on, right? But you are not allowed to leave the premises. Now, let's look at the paper pattern. Firstly, analytical writing ability. That was the very first section. you will get one issue that you need to express your opinions on. Now, that issue is something where you can take a stand either for it or against it. So, let me give you an example. Should the government spend some more money on research? This is something that you might agree with, you might not agree with. So, you have to pick up one stance and stick to it, and at the same time, validate that stance by giving some more relevant examples. So, you will have 30 minutes and you will get a score somewhere between 0 and 6, and this moves in points of 0.5. So, you can get a score of 2.5 or 3 or 3.5, etc. Moving on to the next section, that is going to be verbal reasoning. Now, in verbal reasoning, there will be two sections. Section 1 will have 12 questions and you get 18 minutes to solve. And section 2 will have 15 questions and you get 23 minutes to solve. What do we mean by this? Let's go back to the previous slide. We just talked about this particular pattern. So, this is going to be section 1, VR1, and this is going to be section 2. So, in the first section, you are going to get 12 questions, and in the second section you are going to get 15 questions, and the time limit has been mentioned over here as well. Similarly, for quant, again you will have two sections. You will have 12 and 15 questions respectively in both the sections, but over here you get 3 minutes extra. For quant, you will have 21 minutes in section 1 and 26 minutes in section 2. Your overall score is going to be somewhere between 130 and 170. So the higher you score, the better it is for you. Now, I have written one thing over here, that this test is going to be section adaptive. What do we mean by that? Let's try and understand that. So, the first section, be it the quant section or be it the verbal section, is going to have medium level of difficulty. Now, what do I mean by that? Medium level of difficulty, you will get a good mixture of questions. Roughly one third of them would be on the easier side, roughly one third of them would be on the moderate side, and roughly one third of them would be on the difficult side. This goes for both the first section of quant and the first section of verbal. Now, depending upon your performance, the next section is going to be presented in front of you. So, what do we mean by that? Let's see. Let's say your performance was very good. Out of, let's say, those 12 questions, you were able to get 10 or 11 correct. This is just a random number I'm putting in front of you. So, out of those 12 questions, you were able to get 10 to 11 correct. That would be considered as an excellent performance. Now, the system is going to judge that, okay, this candidate has done very well in the first section. Let's throw a hard level of section for section 2. So, if your quant very first section went well, your quant second section is going to be on the tougher side. The number of difficult questions would be more. The number of moderate questions would be slightly less. And the number of easier questions are going to be even lesser than that. Right? So, if the paper becomes tough, you don't have to worry. It's a very good sign that you have done a good performance in that particular section. And same goes for your verbal section as well. If the first section of verbal goes well, the second section is going to be challenging, and based on that, your entire score would be calculated. What do I mean by that? So, if your second section was hard and you performed well over there as well, you would be more towards 170, which is the maximum that you can get. If your performance was somewhat moderate, you would be getting a higher score, but not as high as 170. And if your performance was not very good for a difficult section, again, you are going to be getting a score that is slightly lesser than 165 or somewhere around 160. All right, let's talk about the case where you did not do justice to the very first section of either the verbal or quant. So, your performance was slightly on the average side. So, the second section that comes in front of you is going to have questions that are more towards the easier side. So, if you get an easy section in the second section, even if you get a very good performance over here, your score is not going to jump that much. And therefore, the attempt of first section becomes very important. You have to ensure that the first section that you are attempting, be it of verbal or be it of quant, the performance has to be good. so that the second section comes a little bit more challenging, and even if you do not perform very well in the second section, your score is not going to dip a lot. So that is what we mean by the section adaptiveness of the paper. Let's have a quick look. So a quick recap. In the quant section, there will be 12 questions. In the verbal reasoning, there will be 12 questions. That is your section 1. Then the second section of quant will have 15 questions, and the second section of verbal will have again 15 questions. So now we are moving on to the next part of our discussion, where we would be looking at the different type of questions that you will find in your GRE paper. Let's talk about the quant section initially. The first type of question that you will find is going to be multiple choice, the single answer correct. So there's a question in front of you, some inequality has been given to you. Now you need to find out which of the following has the greatest value. There are 5 options in front of you, out of which only a single one is going to be correct. That is why it's a multiple choice but single correct answer type of question. What's the next type? The next type, you will have multiple choices as well as multiple correct answer type of question. So there's a question in front of you, you can always give it a shot. And there are 5 options in front of you. There can be 4 options as well. There can be 6 options as well, out of which there can be one or more than one of them to be the correct answer, right? So you have to select all the correct answers, then and only then your entire attempt would be counted as the correct one. What's the third type of question that you will find? The third type of question is going to be a quantitative comparison question. What do we mean by that? Some data has been given to you. Based on that data, based on that information, you need to calculate 2 quantities. And out of these 2 quantities, which one of them is greater, you have to identify. There are 4 possibilities. Either A is going to be greater than B, or B is going to be greater than A. There's also a possibility that both the quantities are equal, and there's also a possibility that with the information that has been given to you, you cannot determine what's the relationship between quantity A and quantity. So that's the third type of question you will find in your quant section. And there's one more type, which is the type in the answer type of question. Now, what is going to happen? Generally, this type of question is going to be found in data interpretation. What do we mean by data interpretation? Some sort of graph, some sort of charts would be given to you, some data would be given to you, and at the end, there's going to be a question in front of you. Now, after solving the question, you won't be having options. You need to click on this box and type your answer. So therefore, this is the fourth type of question that you will find in your quantitative reasoning section. How many questions were there? 12 questions in section 1 and 15 questions in section 2. All right. Now, let's have a look at the verbal reasoning type of questions. What are the different type of questions you will find in the verbal section? First, the first type of question would be text completion with only one blank. So what's happening is there's a statement in front of you and there's a blank. Now, in order to fill this blank, there are 5 options presented to you, out of which only one is going to be correct. You need to choose that, you get marks for it. What's going to be next? I think so you can guess it. It's again going to be a text completion type of question, but with 2 blanks. There's again a statement in front of you, but in this case, there are going to be 2 blanks. For both the blanks, 3 options would be provided. You have to select the correct option. Then and only then you would be getting full marks. What I mean is, both the blanks have to be correctly filled. That is where your attempt would be counted as a right one. Third type doesn't end over here. Text completion with 3 blanks will also be found in this section. Now, I won't waste much of your time. There's going to be a paragraph, there will be 3 blanks, and for each blank, you will have 3 options. You need to choose the correct one. So, that is what you would find in text completion, either with 1 blank, 2 or 3. There's another thing that's known as sentence equivalence. Now, after looking at the question, you might feel that, Anirudh, this is again the same as text completion with one blank. So what's the difference in this particular question? Why is it branded as a different type of question? So if you look closely, over here, you will find that there are a total of 6 options. And this blank would be filled by 2 of them. What I'm trying to say is there are 2 options out of these 6 that can come over here and make a sentence that is meaningful, right? So this is a type of question in which you will have multiple correct answers. And again, I'll repeat this. You will have to choose both the correct options. That is when it would be counted as a correct attempt. All right. Next would be questions based on reading comprehension. I mean, if you are talking about verbal reasoning and you do not find a question on reading comprehension, that doesn't make sense. So now, what happens in reading comprehension? You would be presented with a paragraph, and after that paragraph, there will be questions asked to you of different types. The first type of question is a very simple one, a question, and you will see that there are 5 options in front of you, out of which only one of them is going to be correct. That's the first type of question in reading comprehension. Fun fact, even in reading comprehension, you will have 3 types of questions. So that's the very first type. The second type is going to be consider each of the 3 choices separately and select all that apply. Now, in these kind of questions, you will have exactly 3 options, out of which 1, 2, or all the 3 of them could be correct. You need to mark all that are correct options. So that's the second type of question you will find in reading comprehension. And the third type, have a look. Now, if you look at this closely, there are no options in front of you. So what's this? What's happening is select the sentence that distinguishes 2 ways of integrating rock and classical music. So what's happening is based on this passage, there's a question that has been asked to you. And once this question comes, you are supposed to take your cursor and do what is expected of you. So over here, you need to select the sentence that will help you distinguish between classical and rock kind of music. So let's say this is the answer. To be honest, I don't know what the answer is. So let's say this is the answer. So you would be selecting this word and the entire sentence would be automatically selected. And that is when your response is recorded. And if you get it right, you get marks. If you get it wrong, you do not get marks. So this is how you will find your reading comprehension section. Now, the last thing that we are going to discuss is how to get a score of 320 plus in your GRE examination. How do we do that? Now, please don't keep this target that I will be getting 160 in both the sections. I mean, you can do that, but it's easier to get a higher score in quant as compared to the verbal section, especially for the Indian audience, because as test takers, we are generally very good with mathematics. So let's firstly have a look at how do I get a good score in the quant section. Now, you should, as I mentioned, you should ideally be targeting a score of 165 plus in your examination. It's manageable. You can do that. What are the things that you need to do? Firstly, you need to have your conceptual mastery. What are the different sections you will find in your quantitative reasoning? You will be tested on arithmetic, number properties. What comes in arithmetic? You have your percentages, you have your profit and loss, you have your time, speed and distance, etc. What comes in number properties? Even numbers, odd numbers, positive numbers, negative numbers. I mean, this might sound easy. It's not. It can become a very challenging one. You can find questions on algebra. You have your simple equation, your linear equation, your quadratic equation, etc. You will be having your geometry. This is not going to leave you. You have your circles, you have your quadrilaterals, you have your lines and angles. So questions based on them. And at the end, you will have your modern maths. So questions on permutation, combination, and probability. You will have questions on functions as well, right? So these are the type of topics that you will encounter in your GRE test. So make sure that the first thing that you do is get your conceptual clarity on these topics. I mean, these are topics that you have studied till your 10th grade. It's just that you have to brush it up and take it to another level, right? The next thing that needs to be done is obviously regular practice. Just getting acquainted with the theory is not going to make it through. You have to practice on a regular basis. So what are the different resources you can use to practice? One thing that I would recommend is there's an official guide that ETS provides. Make sure that you are solving that. And obviously, at IMS International, you can join a batch and get access to our material as well, right? But the most important thing that needs to be done, apart from our material, is going to be the official guide to the GRE. ETS provides you that. So make sure that you solve that. Now, make sure that you are solving at least one unit every day. That unit could either be, let's say, arithmetic, or it could be algebra. Practice has to be done on a daily basis. I mean, out of the blue, you decide that, okay, on Sunday, I'm going to complete the entire arithmetic. It doesn't work that way. Make sure that you are dividing, you are segregating the different topics of arithmetic and taking it on a daily basis. That is something which will actually help you a lot in retaining the topics that you have learned for a longer period of time. All right. So now once you are done with the theory and once you are done with the practice, the last thing that needs to be done is going for your mock test and analysis. These are the official mocks that ETS is going to provide you. So make sure that you are using them wisely. Do not start them unless you are done with your entire preparation and your practice. It's very important to analyze your mistakes, because if you don't understand where you are going wrong, you are probably going to make the same mistake again in the next paper. And that is why just appearing for the mocks is not going to cut it through. You have to ensure that you put a lot of time on your analysis as well. Now, we would be talking about the verbal section as to how you can improve your score in the verbal section. It's advisable that you target a score of somewhere around 155 and above in your verbal section. The first thing that you need to do is start working on your vocabulary. We just saw that in the verbal section, you will have a lot of questions where fill in the blank needs to be done, right? Be it test completion, be it sentence equivalence. Your vocabulary has to be very strong. It is advised that for an average Indian test taker, the candidate must be comfortable with at least 3000 words, right? So, in order to improve your vocabulary, you will have to learn at least 1500 to 2000 new words, so that the remaining words will start coming into your vocabulary at a later stage. But in the initial period, you have to go for at least 1500 to 2000 words. Now, this might sound like a very daunting challenge. It's not. You are not supposed to take your GRE the next week. You will have at least 3 months for your preparation. So, if you have 3 months for your preparation, that is roughly 500 words that you need to do on a monthly basis, which, if I break it down further, comes down to 20 new words on a daily basis. That is something that you can easily. And you are planning to study from the best of the university, 20 new words you can easily learn. Next thing, start working on your reading as well. I mean, the faster you read, the more time you have to solve a question that comes in reading comprehension. Now, don't read some random things. It's advisable, it's better that if you open a newspaper and go to the editorial page and start looking at the views of different people. Once you have got the habit of reading, once you have included that in your daily practice, the next thing that you should do is start solving those reading comprehension passages. Now, GRE generally tests you on these 4 type of passages: literature, history, science, and general studies. So, once you are comfortable with the reading aspect, start solving passages from these particular type. The next thing that you have to do is to understand how to do critical analysis. If you look at your GRE paper, it's not going to be a very simple one. I mean, they are not going to tell that, let's say, Anirudh was born in Gujarat, and in the questions they ask you, where was Anirudh born? No. What they are going to ask is they are going to give an opinion of somebody, and then they are going to ask, what is the author trying to say by this particular statement? So you will have to understand the context. And how do we understand the context? By doing critical analysis. So therefore, you are doing thorough analysis of what you are reading. The last thing, which goes without saying, is going for practice and review. The same thing that you did in quant, the same thing you have to do over here as well. Make a target that, okay, I will have to do at least 5 RCs every day. I will be doing at least 5 questions of text completion. Every day, I would be doing at least 5 questions on sentence equivalence, etc. So make sure that you have your study plan in mind, you have your study plan in place before you start studying. So that's it from my end. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the comment box. We would be more than happy to answer those queries. If you like this video, if you got to know more about GRE, feel free to subscribe to our channel. It's Anirudh Murarka signing off.